This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhattan. Coming up in the next hour. India and China hold special representative dialogue on the boundary question in Beijing. Special representatives underline importance of maintaining peace and tranquility in the border areas. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli forces will remain stationed on Syria's Mt Hermon until another arrangement is found. Russia's top general says Moscow now views the topic of arms control over vast nuclear arsenals a thing of the past. And Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faces increased pressure from within and outside his party to quit after resignation of his most senior and prominent cabinet member. And India's second highest test wicket taker Ravichandran Ashwin retires from international cricket. India and China have resumed high-level talks to address their long-standing border dispute and mend frozen ties after years of tension. In a rare meeting in Beijing, top representatives from both nations aimed to turn a new page in their strained relationship, with discussions holding potential consequences for regional stability and global diplomacy. DD India's Jessica Taneja files this report.
China held the 23rd round of special representatives talks in Beijing on Wednesday, marking a significant step towards restoring bilateral relations and managing peace along the line of actual control. The meeting, led by India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, came after a 5-year hiatus in the SR mechanism. NSA Doval arrived in Beijing on Tuesday to participate in the talks, which aim to rebuild ties that have been strained for over 4 years due to a military standoff in eastern Ladakh. The standoff, which began in May 2020, escalated with a deadly Galwan Valley clash in June 2020, freezing relations between the two nations except for trade. Key topics on the agenda included the implementation of the October 21 disengagement agreement and the restoration of patrolling rights in eastern Ladakh. Both sides are also exploring a long-term resolution to the border dispute. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian expressed optimism about the talks, emphasizing Beijing's willingness to address differences with sincerity and mutual respect.
China is ready to work with India to implement the important common understandings reached between the leaders of China and India, respect each other's core interests and major concerns, and bring bilateral relations back to the track of stable and healthy development.
The special representatives meeting builds on recent high-level engagements, including the October 24 discussions between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping in Kazan, Russia, during the BRICS summit. This was followed by talks between Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart at the G20 summit in Brazil, as well as meetings under the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on China-India Border Areas, or the WMCC. The October 21 agreement marked the completion of the disengagement process at the remaining friction points of Demchok and Depsang, effectively ending the prolonged face-off at the LAC. The SR mechanism, established in 2003, has been a key platform for addressing the 3,488-kilometer border dispute. It has convened 22 times in the past, offering a structured framework for dialogue on recurring tensions. The current round is particularly significant as it represents the first formal engagement aimed at normalizing relations since the 2020 standoff. The SR talks are expected to lay the groundwork for a more comprehensive resolution to the border dispute and a gradual restoration of bilateral ties. As discussions progress, the outcome of the SR meeting will be closely watched for its impact on regional stability and the broader Indo-China relationship. Jessica Taneja's report for DD India.
So the 23rd meeting of Special Representatives of India, or SRs, of India and China respectively, as we just mentioned, was held in Beijing on 18th of December 2024. Now let's take a look at the key operative areas. The SRs met in accordance with the decision taken during the recent meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping in Kazan. The SRs reiterated the importance of maintaining a political perspective of the overall bilateral relationship while seeking a fair, reasonable and acceptable mutually framework for settlement of the boundary question and resolve to inject more vitality into this process. Remember, this was the first meeting of the SR since fictions had emerged in the western sector of the India-China border areas way back in 2020. The SRs positively affirmed the implementation of the latest disengagement agreement of October 2024, resulting in patrolling and grazing in relevant areas. Also, both SRs underlined the importance of maintaining peace and tranquility in the border areas to promote overall development of the India-China bilateral relationship. They emphasized the need to ensure peaceful conditions on the ground so that issues on the border do not hold back the normal development of the bilateral relations. Drawing on the learnings from the events of 2020, they discussed various measures to maintain the peace and tranquility on the border and advance effective border management. They also decided to use coordinates and guide the relevant diplomatic and military mechanisms towards this purpose. The SRs exchanged also views on bilateral, regional and global issues of mutual interest. They also provided positive directions for cross-border cooperation and exchanges, including resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, data sharing on trans-border rivers and border areas. They agreed on the salience of stable, predictable and amicable India-China relations for regional global stability and peace. NSA called on Vice President of the People's Republic of China, Han Zheng. NSA also invited Wang Yi to visit India at a mutually convenient day to hold the next round of Special Representatives meeting. Let's quickly go across to DD India's correspondent Amrit Pal to join us. He joins us more on the outcome, Amrit. He joins us from the newsroom. Outcome overall, what do we make of this detailed, the statement that has come, and especially the SR level of meeting coming after a long hiatus of 5 years? What more are you picking up?
Shakil, if you cut out the diplomats out of the readouts put out on both sides, I think three main things have been achieved. One, resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, which had stopped after tensions escalated. Second, they agreed on data sharing on rivers. That's very important because every time Brahmaputra water is released or water is withheld, it either leads to a drought or a flood in Brahmaputra or in plains of Assam, even leading to Bihar. So that data sharing was stopped. Now that's going to have a very significant impact. So I think that is a big achievement out of these talks that took place today. Third, the resumption of the border trade through the Nathula Pass, which is in our Tibet. That trade had also stopped. Now that's a significant trade that happens through the land border, because otherwise you'll have to ship it all the way from Southeast Asia and go touch either Kolkata or Chennai or Visakhapatnam. So that adds to the cost. So for Indian businessmen and even for the Chinese, the things exported for India, that means a lot. Now, I think these are very important agreements that have been achieved. Also, the dynamics of the talks. Both sides reaffirmed their commitment to hold it. It was held in a very positive manner. And they said that, if I can read from the readout.
Sure.
They said that the SRs positively affirmed the implementation of the latest disengagement agreement of 2024, resulting in patrolling and grazing in relevant areas. Also, they say that they will directly monitor the military and the diplomatic mechanisms for a peaceful resolution, and they want to discuss measures to maintain peace and tranquility on the border and avoidance of advance effective border management. This is not just legalese or diplomaties. this is important when they reaffirm, when at the political level, peace and tranquility is mentioned, and they put their political weight behind, because both armies are sitting in an eyeball to eyeball situation. So basically they've said that we will try and resolve the issue, the standoff, through the WMMCC, but we will monitor that, and we commit to it that our forces will not get into a military conflict. Because it's very easy when you can see the enemy a few meters away,
right.
tensions can escalate on the border. And but when it comes from the top political leadership of both countries, they put their political weight behind and say, well, we affirm and commit that sort of a situation wouldn't happen. So I think it's clearly there is a thaw, there is breaking of the ice and a forward movement on that. And that's why what transpired today in the SR level talks was very, very significant. And remember, these talks, as you said, happened after 4 long years, after when things escalated and flared up in 2020. When the soldiers of the Bihar regiment were butchered.
Yes.
So after that, this is the first time your SRs have decided to sit across the table and says, enough is enough, let's resolve it peacefully.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much, Amrit, for clearly explaining the optics of it and the outcome and what it really does to the relationship, the bilateral ties between India and China, which otherwise many experts would, describe as frosty, but now they have clearly eased out. Thank you, Amrit Pal, for joining us from Newsroom. Thanks. Now let's just shift our focus to some other international top stories, shifting focus to Russia, Ukraine, wherein a clear signs of further escalation. Russia and Ukraine are embroiled in acquisitions and counter-acquisitions for indulging in a sort of chemical warfare. Meanwhile, authorities in Russia have also arrested a suspect over the killing of a top general and his aide in a bomb blast in Moscow. The investigative committee, in a statement on Wednesday, says that a national of Uzbekistan had been arrested on suspicion of having committed the attack that killed Lieutenant General Igor Krylov and his assistant. Dheeraj Das of DD India gets us more details.
Russia has accused Ukraine of dropping white phosphorus munitions from drones in September, but Kiev denied it had used such weapons and said it was Moscow which had used prohibited chemical substances on the battlefield. Russian Foreign Ministry said law enforcement agencies had evidence of the use of such munitions by Ukraine, but did not provide details.
The law enforcement agencies of our country, in cooperation with the Russian Ministry of Defense, have obtained irrefutable evidence of the repeated use of white phosphorus by the armed forces of Ukraine in September as a self-igniting filling for ammunition dropped from drones. This fact indicates the presence of chemical weapons in Ukraine which were not disposed of in accordance with international regulations.
Kiev was quick to deny the charges and instead accused Russia of using prohibited chemical substances on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Russia on Wednesday announced it had detained a citizen of Uzbekistan who had confessed to planting and detonating a bomb which killed Lieutenant General Igor Krylov in Moscow a day earlier on the instructions of Ukraine's security service.
Investigators of the main investigation directorate of the Investigative Committee of Russia, in cooperation with the FSB and the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia, detained a citizen of the Republic of Uzbekistan born in 1995 on suspicion of committing a terrorist act that killed Igor Krylov and his assistant Ilya Polikarpov. The investigative actions are being carried out with the detainee. During interrogation, he explained that he had been recruited by the Ukrainian Special Services.
Russian Foreign Ministry said Russia will raise the assassination of General Igor Krylov by Ukraine at the United Nations Security Council on December 20. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said everyone involved in the killing would be found and punished.
The permanent mission of Russia to the UN will raise the issue of the committed terrorist act during the UN Security Council meeting on the supply of Western weapons to Ukraine requested by Russia on December 20. We are confident that all the organizers and perpetrators of the murder of Krylov will be found, punished, whoever it may be, wherever they are.
As the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues, Moscow has intensified its attacks on Ukrainian forces battling to hold an enclave in Russia's Kursk region and increased pressure in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. As the war approaches its third year, Ukrainian troops are weary and outnumbered along the 1,170-kilometer front line. Dheeraj Das's report for DD India.
And staying with Russia, the Russian chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, has said that arms control was now a thing of the past due to the lack of trust between Russia and the West. Gerasimov says Russia had seen increased activity by the US-led NATO military alliance near Russia's border.
Над вооружениями. Понимание опасности этих шагов в мире растет.
The understanding of the danger of these steps is growing in the world. Many countries have begun to think about adequate response measures. Overall, the topic of arms control has remained in the past, as returning to a minimum level of trust is impossible today due to world's double standards. And without trust, it is impossible to create an effective mechanism for mutual control.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Coming up next, this is what we have for you. Europe slow to react to Georgian political crises, says President Zurabishvili. And first flight since Bashar al-Assad's fall departs from Syria's capital, Damascus.
Pollution of all types across the globe is a huge problem. But what is the solution to this? Does it require individual efforts, community action, or state interference? Let's take a look at some of the possibilities, challenges and opportunities.
They have to segregate their waste, manage their organic waste within their premises as far as possible. They have to hand over the rest of the waste, the residual waste, to the authorized waste collector.
When the local administration saw what I had done, it decided to build the drainage system you see here, connecting the whole area to it.
Trees are our lifesavers. They give us oxygen, and it's unfair to harm them by hammering iron nails into them just for the sake of ads.
Well, you're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and now let's move on to some updates from Syria, where Israel is to stay in Syrian buffer zone for foreseeable future. This Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu briefed the military commanders and security officials during his visit to Mt Hermon site on the Syrian border. Now, first domestic flight also from Damascus since Assad's overthrow landed in Aleppo. DD India's Shalini Puri has more.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asserted that Israel will remain on the strategic Mt Hermon site on the Syrian border until another arrangement is found. On Tuesday, Netanyahu went to the site for an operational briefing with military commanders and security officials, where he made this remark.
We are holding the assessment in order to decide on the deployment of the IDF in this important place until another arrangement is found that ensures Israel's security. I was here 53 years ago with my soldiers. The place has not changed. It is the same place, but its importance for the security of Israel has only been underscored in recent years.
Israeli troops occupied Mt Hermon, where they moved into a demilitarized zone between Syria and Golan Heights following the collapse of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government this month. On the other hand, Syrians are facing serious financial problems amid political uncertainties in the country. The salaries of public sector employees have been withheld.
I am an employee and I need my salary. It's been since Tuesday that I have a certain amount of money in the ATM and I can't find it.
We are standing for 3 days by ATM machines and nobody gives us good answers. There are no salaries, no electricity, no internet, and we can't live without our salaries.
According to Syrian officials, the dollar reserves have been nearly depleted because Bashar al-Assad's government increasingly used them to fund food, fuel, and its war effort. Syrian caretaker Prime Minister Mohammed al-Bashir has expressed concerns of low foreign currency reserves in Syria.
The financial reserve in Syria is very small and negligible, and the Syrian currency is also completely collapsed. The regime left us a legacy of debts and corrupt contracts with some internal and external companies.
According to the UN report, more than 800,000 people have been displaced in Syria.
Concrete movement on an inclusive political transition will be key in ensuring Syria receives the economic support it needs. There is clear international willingness to engage.
The United Nations, meanwhile, has said that it expects around 1 million people to return to Syria in the first half of 2025. Shalini Puri's report for DD India.
Meanwhile, the head of the Syrian National Coalition, Hadi al-Bahra, which grouped opponents of the Bashar al-Assad during the civil war, said on Wednesday that Syria's transitional government should be credible and not exclude any Syrian party or be based on sectarianism.
So I call on all of you to support the current caretaker government in Syria, which is supposed to finish its duties by the beginning of March. Then after March, a transitional government will be formed within a quarter of Syrians. When it gets formed, it needs to include everyone, all of Syria, with all its components, without an exclusion of any party.
Shifting focus to Georgia, we're speaking in front of MEPs at Strasbourg in France. Georgian President Salom Zubravishvili criticized Europe for being slow to wake up and slow to react to the political crises in her country.
Where Georgians have been fighting day and night, Europe has been slow to wake up and slow to react. While European flags are being banned in Tbilisi, Georgians are still waiting for biting measures to come from Brussels and Washington. And I hope we won't have to wait for a deeper crisis to occur for Europe to act.
A top UN official on Tuesday pushed world powers in Iran to urgently work to restore a 2015 deal that lifted sanctions on Tehran in return for restrictions on its nuclear program, warning that its success or failure matters to all of us. Iran's deal with Britain, Germany, France, the United States, Russia and China is known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The US quit the agreement in 2018 during Donald Trump's first term as president, and Iran began moving away from its nuclear-related commitments under the deal. UN Political Affairs Chief Rosemary DiCario told the Security Council that it's the time which is of the great essence and which enshrined the deal in 2015 resolution.
Time is of the essence. While the onus is on JCPOA participants and the U.S., their success or failure matters to all of us. The region cannot afford further instability. There must be genuine commitment to dialogue and diplomacy.
Japan's Space One terminated the flight of its Kairos small rocket shortly after liftoff on Wednesday, marking the end of its second attempt in 9 months to become the country's first company to deliver a satellite to space. Space One said that the flight, which only lasted about 10 minutes, was terminated because the achievements of its mission would be difficult. Some news on the national political front in India. Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Wednesday hit out at the Congress for allegedly distorting his remarks of B.R. Ambedkar in the upper house, that's the Rajya Sabha, stating he belongs to a party, and that's the BJP, that can never insult a leader who drafted the constitution. The winter session of India's parliament, which began on November 25th, is in its last week. Session will conclude on December 20th. DD India's Anil Thomas gets us this detailed report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday stoutly defended Amit Shah from the Congress charge that he insulted B.R. Ambedkar in his speech in the Rajya Sabha, asserting that the Home Minister in fact exposed the party's dark history of insulting the architect of the Constitution, leaving the main opposition party stung and stunned. Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju hit out at the Congress for disrupting the House proceedings over Amit Shah's remarks on B.R. Ambedkar and said the opposition was distorting the Home Minister's comments.
गृह मंत्री जी ने बहुत साफ शब्दों में बाबा साहब भीमराव अंबेडकर जी के बारे में हमारा श्रद्धा का भाव को प्रकट किया था और साथ साथ में ये बताया कि बाबा साहब अंबेडकर के जीते जी कांग्रेस पार्टी ने अंबेडकर जी का कैसा अपमान किया और बाबा साहब को जीते जी और बाबा साहब परिनिर्वाण होने के बाद भी इतने साल तक कांग्रेस पार्टी ने भारत रत्न से नहीं नवाजा गया और साथ साथ कांग्रेस पार्टी ने बाबा साहब को इंसल्ट करके 1952 में बाबा साहब को चुनाव में षड्यंत्र के तहत बाबा साहब को हराने का काम कांग्रेस पार्टी ने किया है.
Several MPs of the India bloc, including Congress leader Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi, staged a protest in Parliament premises, demanding Home Minister Amit Shah's apology for his remarks, which they claim were an insult to B.R. Ambedkar. The MPs lined up in front of the steps of the Makar Dwar of Parliament, carrying images of Ambedkar. The opposition party also demanded that Shah should apologize publicly and in Parliament for his remarks.
सभी पार्टी के लोग एक होकर जो बाबा साहब का अपमान शाह ने किया है वो गलत है, इसीलिए वो मैं डिमांड हिज रेसिग्नेशन.
Chairman Rajya Sabha, before adjourning the upper house, clarified that he had listened to the speech on the floor of the house by the Home Minister twice and there is nothing objectionable in it.
जब पहली बार ट्वीट के ऊपर एक बात आई, मैंने भी 2 बार देखा है. मेरा आपसे अनुरोध रहेगा, बाबा साहब भीमराव अंबेडकर के जो नीति रही है और हम सब के लिए भविष्य के लिए परामर्श रहा है.
There are 2 days left in the winter session of Parliament, but with no headway being made, the logjam is likely to stall Parliament for the remainder of the session. Anil Thomas, DD India, New Delhi.
Staying with the story, talking to media persons in national capital Delhi, India's Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that his statement on Baba Saheb Ambedkar in Rajya Sabha was presented in a distorted manner. He also requested the media to put his full statement in front of the public, stating that BJP can never insult Ambedkarji, and added that whenever his party has been in power, it propagated the principles of Baba Saheb Ambedkar.
चिर परिचित अपनी पुरानी नीति पर कांग्रेस आई है और उन्होंने मेरे बयान को तोड़ मरोड़ कर आधा ही दिखाकर जनता के सामने रखना और भ्रांति फैलाने का प्रयास किया है. कृपया मेरा पूरा बयान आप सभी लोग जनता तक पहुंचाइए तो दूध का दूध और पानी का पानी हो जाएगा. मैं उस पार्टी से आता हूं, उस संस्कृति से आता हूं जो स्वप्न में भी बाबा साहब के विचारों का या बाबा साहब के स्वयं का अपमान नहीं कर सकते.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Kuwait on 21st and 22nd of December 2024 at the invitation of Mayor of Kuwait. This will be the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Kuwait in 43 years. During his visit, the Prime Minister will hold discussions with the leadership of Kuwait. Prime Minister will also interact with the Indian community in Kuwait. India and Kuwait share traditionally close and friendly relations, which are rooted in history and have been underpinned by economic and strong people-to-people linkages. India is among the top trading partners of Kuwait. Indian community is the largest expatriate community in Kuwait. The visit will provide an opportunity to further strengthen the multifaceted ties between India and Kuwait. Also on Wednesday, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a telephone call from the Netherlands Prime Minister Dick Schoof. Both leaders underscored the trusted and valued partnership between India and Netherlands that are based on shared values and belief in democracy and rule of law. They also discussed ways to further deepen the existing cooperation in the sectors of water, agriculture, health. Both agreed to elevate the bilateral partnership and provided a strategic dimension in diverse sectors including trade, defense, security, innovation, green hydrogen and semiconductors. Both emphasized on building the close people-to-people ties and exchanges in the field of education and culture. The two leaders exchanged views on regional and global developments. Leaders reiterated commitment to work for promoting peace, security, cooperation and stability. The two leaders agreed to remain in touch in near future. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau finds himself in a bit of a political fight of his life. He has acknowledged internal strife within his ruling Liberal Party as he is under intense pressure to step down, and this pressure also comes from abroad. Adding to his issues and problems, opposition parties from across the political spectrum have intensified their demands for his resignation. Also upping the ante, Canada's New Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh has called for resignation of Prime Minister of Canada Justin Trudeau. Ignoring these clamours to step aside, Justin Trudeau has reiterated that he plans to stay on as the Liberal leader in the next elections as well. And this renewed push could further embolden detractors within his own party, putting his leadership to an even shakier grounds. DD India's Akhilesh Suman has more.
For Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Tuesday turned into another tough day as Parliament echoed with sharp accusations from an energized opposition. Lawmakers from across the opposition's political spectrum attacked his administration, blaming him for policy failures and calling for his resignation.
Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, lost the confidence of many of his MPs, acknowledged that he doesn't have a mandate to continue to govern, and call a carbon tax election.
While Trudeau is working hard to keep his party and the government steady, growing dissent within his party adds to his mounting challenges. Sensing the rising political stakes, newly appointed Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc came to the government's defense. He assured Parliament that Prime Minister Trudeau is making determined efforts to address Canada's economic and diplomatic challenges.
Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't finished supporting Canadians, something the Conservatives aren't interested in doing.
Defending the government further, House Leader Karen Gold reminded the Parliament that the government has already survived a confidence vote last week. She emphasized that the administration's priority is tackling the economic fallout and managing US-Canada relations amid Trump's aggressive trade policies.
Mr. Speaker, this House voted in confidence of this government just last week on multiple occasions. Mr. Speaker, we have important work to do on behalf of Canadians. We have a very important relationship to manage with the United States at a pivotal time.
In response to Trump's aggressive stance on border security and trade, Trudeau announced a $1.3 billion Canadian plan to bolster Canada's border security over the next 6 years to stop illegal immigration into USA. The plan includes deploying drones, surveillance towers, helicopters and hiring more border agents to enhance US-Canada border security, causing huge bearing on Canada's exchequer.
Like most families, sometimes we have fights around the holidays. But of course, like most families, we find our way through it.
Insiders say former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has resigned after clashing with Trudeau over handling US President-elect Donald Trump's threat of imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian imports. Freeland advocated for tighter fiscal controls, while Trudeau insisted on boosting financial aid for wooing public sentiment, along with strengthening border security. However, questions remain about how both priorities will be funded at a time when Canada's economy is grappling with severe challenges. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
So is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau possibly staring at the toughest battle of his political career so far, and especially in the wake of Deputy Prime Minister and its Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's resignation. Several politicians, including some of his own Liberal Party, have called for his ouster, and this is something which is already mounting. The pressure is mounting. So will he heed the demands or stay put? And what are the possible options for Justin Trudeau? We're going to talk about that, and we're very glad to be joined by Professor Swaran Singh from School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, India. Thank you very much, Professor Singh. Such a pleasure talking to you, sir. So, Justin Trudeau says he will reflect, quote unquote, his next move. So far, he is, we know, refused to bow down to the pressure and resign as the Prime Minister of Canada. Quoting him, he says, in difficult times, it's not time to stop. It's time to be ambitious and audacious. How precarious you think he's placed politically?
Thank you, Sakal. I think increasingly the situation for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has increasingly become more and more complex, more and more challenging. And it's a combination of several of the things that have been happening over the last 2 years or so. Gradually, the whole build-up by opposition to begin with, you remember his opposition leader in Parliament, Pierre Poilievre, has used often very harsh language, calling Justin Trudeau weak and wacky and so on. Then, of course, his coalition partner, again, who had walked out about nearly 2 months back, is now openly, Jagmeet Singh of the New Democratic Party, is openly asking for his resignation, saying that he no longer has the mandate and he's not shown capability to address challenges, and that his party is fighting among themselves rather than fighting for Canadians, as he says. Then, of course, now within Liberal Party, again, the third level is where the senior leaders, now we saw only this Monday, the Deputy Prime Minister, a very seasoned senior leader, who's been earlier Foreign Minister, Trade Minister, now Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland has also resigned, calling him out for his political gimmicks and so on. We have differences and we cannot work together and so on. And add to that a lot of economic challenges that Canada has been facing under Justin Trudeau's leadership. Housing crisis, healthcare crisis, inflation, price rise, and of course the huge fiscal deficit. The target for this year was that they should control it within $40 billion. It has crossed $60 billion as reports are. And now over and above, see the way President Donald Trump is talking about raising tariffs by 25%. He's blaming Canada of, sort of trafficking of opium and so on.
Okay.
In that sense, the close friends are now beginning to blame each other. Today only, the Canadian Finance Minister, the new Finance Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, has decided to $1 billion+ of investment on border security. So I think increasingly the situation is becoming very difficult for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to continue.
Okay. Having said that, Trudeau's popularity has plunged, sir, and polls show that if the general elections were held today, his party would lose to its main rival, that's the Conservative Party. So is that also adding to the popular public perception?
I think if you see the Canadian media, if you see how intellectuals, academics are talking, other than politicians that we already have discussed, I think increasingly the mood in nation is becoming very anti-Justin Trudeau particularly. May not be so much against his Liberal Party, and his popularity ratings, as you mentioned, have been really falling. But it's a constant process that one can notice that in 2015 elections, when last time the Liberal Party came to power, they had come to power with about 40% plus votes in their favor. In the next elections in 2019, the voting support came down to 33%. And then in another 2021 snap elections came down to 32%. So gradually over a period of time, Liberal Party's support base has also shrunk. And now, of course, this more recent, nearly 2 years of period when personally Justin Trudeau has become increasingly unpopular, almost unacceptable as leader. So I think it is time, as I keep saying, that he has to listen to basically his own inner voice for maintaining decorum of.
But it seems he's not in that mood, space or frame of mind. He's ignoring the clamor to step down very clearly, talking about being time for being ambitious and audacious. He has reiterated that he plans to stay on as a Liberal leader. So in the next elections, can this whole confidence or overconfidence backfire?
I think the opposition within Liberal Party for Justin Trudeau, particularly after Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland's resignation, is very apparent and open. So he can persist whatever time he can until a no confidence motion comes on against him. He's trying all kinds of possibilities of sales tax holidays, of GST holidays, trying to sort of play populist methodologies, which are not sustainable, because we are talking of the economic deceleration, we are talking of the enormous fiscal deficit, and to handle those situations, such populist sort of gimmicks of giving freebies is not something that can be sustained by any imagination. So I think it's a last ditch effort to continue to stick to the position, but in that sense of his legacy, I think this may not wear him very good in the long run.
Yeah.
He's still younger. He could have a long innings in Parliament, in politics. I think it is time that dignity and decorum of Prime Minister's office has to be looked upon as something that he needs to take care of, bother about his legacies, as to how people will remember him.
Also,
and that should make him find a face saver as soon as possible.
Also, does he have that bandwidth to appease, if he wants, some of his disgruntled MPs, the prominent ones? He could offer them some cabinet positions. Is there a likelihood of cabinet shuffle or reshuffle engineered by Trudeau? Cabinet to replace ministers who are not seeking re-election. I mean, this is a sort of narrative, sir, which is growing also, like gaining a lot of traction in the Canadian media also.
Sakal, in case of Canadian Prime Minister's position, he holds all the executive powers of the government. So he has, of course, enormous leverages of distributing goodies, whether it is reshuffling of the cabinet ministry or all kinds of other incentivizing of, desperate effort to ensure people continue to allow him to stay in Prime Minister's position. But what I'm saying is, given the economic challenges, economic crisis that Canada is facing today, those freebies may not be sustainable, is why I'm saying that ultimately it is good for him to find a dignified way of creating a succession plan. And if he is able to somehow manage the leadership of Liberal Party continuing to be in power with another leader coming as Prime Minister, he will perhaps have a chance until October to redeem his respectability in whatever manner and continue to play an important role in politics in coming years. But if he is virtually pushed off the cliff in an effort of all politicians coming together in that sense to ensure that he leaves office in not a very dignified manner,
right,
that will ensure opposition coming to power whenever elections happen.
Yes, Professor saying Justin Trudeau can also resign. I mean, in such a case, the Liberal Party will have to choose a new leader. So now the next possible or natural question is, who is going to be the next Prime Minister in line?
Apparently, there is no clear name as yet in the picture. But of course, we understand that if someone has reached to the stature of becoming Deputy Prime Minister and is now standing virtually against him or distancing from the Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland could become an important candidate right now, but there is a possibility of any other candidate also emerging once the issue of resignation is a reality. So far, since that is not a reality, I think there will be always a lot of fence hitters in the party who are not sure which way their sort of future lies and which way they want to lean, whether they want to lean with Justin Trudeau or against him. Apparently, there is a certain voice. We heard that there was a secret letter sent to him to resign on 28th of October, which of course did not happen. Now again, about 8 to 10 MPs of Liberal Party have publicly gone ahead and said he should resign. So in that sense, there is a constant challenge that he is facing. There is no doubt about it. But if there is any name at this stage who could possibly change him, I think it's really the Deputy Prime Minister, who right now is a very seasoned, very senior minister in his council of ministers,
Senior,
and she has stood up against him.
Yes, against him, but she used to be one of his most prominent and trusted cabinet minister. Last question, sir. What do you think, has this really taken a strong beating as far as, what does this really mean for his international image? Do you think this has taken a strong beating?
I think it's not just Justin Trudeau's image here that we are talking of. When you look at how the world is looking at what is happening in Canada, it's the Liberal Party which is taking the sort of negative publicity. Canada itself is getting a certain amount of negative publicity. The confidence of, I think, Canadian people would be also impacted upon. You hear New Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh saying that this is a time when we all should stand together and defend the prosperity and peace of Canadian citizens rather than fighting with each other. So he's clearly indicating to the demoralization of common people as to how their politicians are clinging to power with all kinds of means possible on their disposal. So I think it's an image of not just Justin Trudeau that is at stake here. It's an image of the entire political elite. It's the image of Canadian nation as such, which is at stake here. And that is why I'm saying I think we should now expect him to go beyond legalities and look at the dignity and the decorum of Prime Minister's Office of Canada. And I think he should ensure some face saver and create a succession plan where he can sustain himself as part of politics.
Well, as of now, Professor Singh, one thing is very clear, that his reluctance to step down is not really auguring well with his own camp, right? We'll have to see how the situation pans out in the next few days. But meanwhile, always a pleasure, Professor Singh, talking to you. Thank you very much. And now, still to come on DD India NewsHour, coming up next. This is what we have for you. Indian schools in Qatar celebrate Qatar National Day. Indian Union Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia says tourism can thrive on a larger scale by understanding and addressing industry needs.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and now let's move on to some more news and updates. Over a dozen people have lost their lives after a boat capsized at sea near India's Mumbai on Wednesday. The Indian Coast Guard has so far rescued 99 passengers. The boat en route to Elephanta Island collided with a passenger ferry following an engine malfunction. Survivors have been shifted to nearby hospitals for treatment. After the tragic incident, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh expressed his heartfelt condolences to the bereaved families in a message posted on platform X. Also, India's President Draupadi Murmu also expressed shock at the accident and condoled the loss of lives. President Murmu also wrote on social media platform X, and I quote, "I'm shocked and saddened to learn of the accident involving a passenger ferry boat and an Indian Navy craft boat near Mumbai harbour. My condolence to the families of those who have lost their lives. I pray for the swift success of the rescue and relief operations and a quick recovery of the survivors." Unquote. Indian schools in Qatar celebrated their Qatar National Day with vibrant cultural performances and festivities, highlighting the strong bond between Indian community and Qatar. India's President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended their greetings to Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the government and its people, expressing hope for stronger ties between the two countries. External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, also conveyed his wishes to Qatar's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, emphasizing the deep historical and cooperative relationship between India and Qatar. India has become the third largest exporter of the smartphones in the world, which was on the 23rd rank in 2019. The country's smartphone exports have also breached the 20,000 crore rupee mark in a single month in November 2024, according to data submitted by companies and figures compiled from industry associations. Sharing a news article on a social media platform, Union Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwin Vaishnav, lauded this achievement and termed it a Make in Bharat story. The Indian Central Minister in charge of development of northeastern states has said that there has been rapid development of highways and airports in the northeastern states under the last 10 years of Modi government, which is why the states offer a very high possibilities for tourism.
As far as the northeast is concerned, India has changed tremendously, and so has the northeast. One of the biggest things that's happened over the last 10 years because of Prime Minister Modi's focus on the Northeast and Purvottar has been the huge investment in infrastructure. The fact that you today, from 10,000 kilometers of national highways, you have 16,000 kilometers of national highways. An area which had only 9 airports, 2 states that did not even have a single airport, Sikkim and Arunachal. Today, not only do both states have airports, but Arunachal Pradesh has 4 airports. From 9, you've gone to 17 airports in the northeast. And I think the northeast today is a jewel in our crown.
The Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Umar Abdullah, has urged the hospitality industry to invest in new places in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir.
Help us develop new destinations. The ones that we have in J&K, particularly in Kashmir, are largely saturated. In season, you're hard pressed now to find rooms in good hotels in Gulmarg, in Pahalgam, even in Sonmarg, Srinagar. But there are destinations that are as yet undeveloped. Bangas, Dotpatri, places like that in Kashmir that we are looking to develop. Where Jammu tourism is concerned, I think Jammu tourism is is a blank canvas.
Nepalese President Ramchandra Paudel appointed Nepal's resident ambassadors to India and Malaysia on Wednesday. The president reappointed Dr. Shankar Prasad Sharma as the ambassador of Nepal to India, while Dr. Netra Prasad Timsina was appointed as Nepal's ambassador to Malaysia. Dr. Sharma is a senior economist and diplomat who has previously served as the ambassador of Nepal to the United States. His previous term as ambassador to India was from March 2022 to July 2024. You're watching DD India NewsHour, and now time for some sports news. Well, Indian cricketer Ashwin or Ravichandran Ashwin has retired from international cricket following the 3rd test of the Border Gavaskar series against Australia in Brisbane. Ashwin retires as one of India's all-time greats, leaving behind a legacy of remarkable achievements. An era has come to an end in international cricket, not just for Indian cricket.
India's spin spearhead Ravichandran Ashwin announced his retirement from international cricket in all formats at the end of the 3rd test of the Border Gavaskar Trophy series in Brisbane. The 38-year-old told the reporters at Gaba that it is going to be his last day playing for India.
This will be my last day as an Indian cricketer in all formats at the international level. I do feel there's a bit of punch left in me as a cricketer, but I would like to expose and probably showcase that in club level cricket.
Indian cricketer Virat Kohli extended his wishes in a tweet. He said, "I have enjoyed every bit of the journey with you, Ash. Your skill and match-winning contributions to Indian cricket are second to none, and you'll always be remembered as a legend of Indian cricket." Ashwin ends his test cricket at a remarkable note. He is India's 2nd highest wicket taker in the format, with 537 wickets from 106 tests, only behind Anil Kumble, who finished with 619 wickets from 132 tests. India's Sports Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia also lauded Ashwin in a tweet for leaving an indelible mark on Indian cricket. He called him one of the greatest off-spinners of all time. From those match-winning spells to incredible test hundreds, you have left an indelible mark on Indian cricket and inspired countless youngsters. Meanwhile, ICC chairman Jay Shah said Ashwin's international career is something to be proud of. He said, one of BCCI's greatest match winners, a magician with the ball and an astute thinker of the game. Vice President of the Indian Cricket Board Rajiv Shukla also praised Ashwin for his exceptional contribution in the game.
BCCI also appreciates it and always salute to his contribution to the world cricket as well as Indian cricket, and particularly domestic cricket also. He is a great bowler. He has got immense potential as far as game is concerned. So I wish him best for his future endeavours.
In addition to his wickets, Ashwin also scored 3,503 test runs with 6 hundreds and 14 50s, making him one of the 11 all-rounders with more than 3,000 runs and 300 wickets. He also won a record 11 Player of the Series awards levelled with Muthaiya Muralidharan. Priya Yadav for DD India.
Some cricket news now. The third test between Australia and India ended in a tame draw on Wednesday after play was abandoned because of rain following tea on day 5 in Brisbane. India were 8 for no loss in their second innings, needing 267 for victory when bad light halted play and brought tea early. The match was unable to resume after the break. Australia's hopes of forcing a result were always hostage to the weather, but their chances of victory were already wafer thin given their attack was a man down. Pace stalwart Josh Hazlewood was out of action after a calf injury. Travis Head was named player of the match after scoring 152 in Australia's first innings. The 5-test series is level at 1-all. The 4th test starts in Melbourne on 26th of December. And before we wrap up, a polite reminder, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves. It's entering the field of OTT platform through Waves. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. So if you're wanting to have a look at some great content for free, that is, then you may download Waves today. And with that, it's also wrap up in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screens to download now. And we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.